House. It is the one and only speaker is Philip Gunn. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Paul. Great to be with you.
Good to be with you.
Thank you for having me.
Well, but that tan is enhanced by the white shirt. So
I don't know if it's a tan or not. My wife had me out planting plants in the yard.
I was going to say you were either in on the beach or just doing yard work.
Yard work, man.
One way or the other. So
I've been digging holes and planting plants and cutting grass and stuff.
You really don't need a membership at a fitness club when you do that.
That's correct.
Because that'll take care of you right there.
Yes, sir.
Man, let's there you go. I got lots to talk to you about. I want to go over first of all of any of the laws that you might want to talk about as far as that are now in effect that the House and Senate and worked on, went to the governor, and have signed.
Well, we could talk about a few of those. Most listeners may know that most laws go into effect on July 1. The state of Mississippi operates on a fiscal calendar year from July 1 to June 30th. And I would venture to say that probably 90% of the laws that we pass have an effective date of July 1. Sometimes they will go into effect immediately upon passage if it's a matter of urgent necessity, or but most of the time they go into effect July 1. So effective last July 1? Last Friday. Many of the laws that we passed in the 2022 session went into effect, including income tax reduction, teacher pay, equal pay, broadband bill, the ARPA funds, the budget itself. We could go on with the big list. Those are the ones that come to mind. I don't remember about medical marijuana, Paul. I don't know if that went into effect upon passage or if that went into effect on July 1. But pretty much everything that we did in this session went into effect on July 1.
It was a big session. By the way, a lot of people don't understand this. One of the other things, the new fiscal calendar year, if you're looking for a new job out there in the Mississippi Delta, as far as corrections, it does pay more now than it's ever paid because of the House and Senate and the governor signed it, and also being pushed by the good Commissioner Burl Cain. Base salary for a corporate officer now, as of July the 1st, is just over $36,000. A sergeant gets $40,000, a captain $42,000, and a major $47,000. And there's a pretty good benefit package, $17,000 to over $20,000 a year. So I just want to mention that. If you're interested, they do need some help at the correction centers across the state.
Yes, sir, they do, and that has been an ongoing concern and issue within our correctional system, and that will certainly hopefully to serve to attract more personnel.
Yesterday, the Judge Deborah Halford, Judge Halford or Halford, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, denied a request by the Mississippi's only abortion clinic to block Mississippi's trigger law. The law becomes effective, I believe, tomorrow. The court also refused to block a separate law that bans abortion after 6 weeks of pregnancy. So talk to me about that, and where does that stand?
Well, back in 1997 or 98, I think it was, the abortion clinic, at that time it's called Pro-Choice Mississippi, as I recall. There was a lawsuit in which they asserted, of course, Kirk Fordyce was the governor back then, they asserted that there was a right to an abortion under our Mississippi Constitution. Roe versus Wade and Casey, of course, concluded that there was a right to an abortion under the United States Constitution. What we saw last week or 2 weeks ago when this decision came down was a decision by the United States Supreme Court that no such right exists under the Constitution. And that, I believe, is the correct decision. The word abortion appears nowhere in either the United States Constitution or the Mississippi Constitution. So this decision of Pro-Choice Mississippi versus Fordyce was based upon the conclusion that the United States Supreme Court established that right in Roe versus Casey. Now that the United States Supreme Court has ruled there is no such right, then the Fordyce decision is no longer valid either. This is what the judge ruled yesterday, that because Fordyce case was based upon the conclusions of Roe and Casey, then since they're no longer the law, then Fordyce is no longer the law. So there is no right to an abortion under our Constitution. That was the effect of the decision yesterday.
So the timetable on this one should be pretty quick to go directly to the Supreme Court, should it not?
If they choose to appeal, the belief is that they will appeal, but all I know is what I read, reports that were given saw on the news last night, and what I read in the paper, and that is that their attorney, Rob McDuff, will consider his options, is what he said. So he may not choose to appeal. If so, then it's just a decided matter. If he does choose to appeal, I suspect the Mississippi Supreme Court will take it up in short order, and I believe the Mississippi Supreme Court will uphold the ruling of the lower court. In other words, they will agree that there is no right to an abortion in Mississippi, and the effect will be an end to the abortion here.
Even if they rule counter to that and surprised everybody, that wouldn't be the end of it. Could the legislature take it up?
Well, the legislature could, come January.
Yeah.
But we also have the trigger law that is in effect, which we passed in 2007, and that law says that if Roe versus Wade is ever overturned, then abortion is banned in Mississippi. So we have that law already in place.
Well, how does that justify with a negative report from the Supreme Court? There seems hot and cold there somewhere. How could those two things live together?
What do you mean? If the Supreme Court,
if the court ruled in favor of McDuff and the probe,
I got you.
How do you have those two things together?
Well,
wouldn't the legislature have to come and do something to clean that up?
Yes, they would. If the court were to rule that way, I believe the legislature would have to step in and clarify that. This is what the United States Supreme Court in the Dobbs case declared, is that the decisions on abortion are now left to the states, and so the state through the legislature would have to rise up and speak to that if we.
Tell me a little,
but I don't think that's going to happen. I think our Supreme Court is going to uphold the lower court.
I would too. I think most people think that that's the way they're going to rule. But again, if you're looking for the extremities, I mean, that's one of the things you have to talk about. You, in your interview with, I'm not even sure who the interview was with when you mentioned this about the 12-year-old child molested by her father, and give me a little bit about that feedback and how's it been.
Well, let me first of all be very, very clear, and I thank you for asking about that. Mm-hmm. They've tried to portray this in some way that we somehow don't find anything wrong with that, and that's just absolutely wrong. That is a horrible, horrible scenario, a horrible situation. I am incredibly I can't speak in words strong enough to declare how evil that is for rape or incest. And in fact, we have laws on the books that speak to that, bring the most severest of punishments to people who do that. So we certainly want to punish that perpetrator and provide help to the victims of that. There is a victim there. The media is trying to sensationalize this entire event with the Dobbs case. 90% of the abortions in this country are elective. 90%. It's just people just choose to do it. The situation that was described there is less than 1%. I think it's less than 0.5%.
It is. 98% is either no reason given or the reason given is convenience.
Yes.
Only 2% are, and we'll take this up when we come back. Only 2%, actually less than 2%, is for other, like the possible death of a mother, the death of a child, or the preborn can't be born, can't survive, or rape. And it's less than that. So it's not. It's. And I was reading this in the state of Mississippi. Mississippi is nowhere near the top, or even in the first 20 or 30 states in incest. It is remarkable. But I read some stats yesterday. I'm not sure you caught them or not, but I want to give a few more, because one of the things here is you cannot have rape or incest without rape. So one way or the other, you're going to be convicted. So I don't understand that. I'll let you as a lawyer clear it up when we come back. All right, we got lots to do here. Speaker of the House, Philip Gunn, is on in the Trustmark Studios. Man, I remember just yesterday when it was Billy McCoy and we were sitting here talking, and I said, "Philip, man, you need to run for Speaker." What was that? 1865 or 1867?
What the last Republican? You mean?
I was looking up something here, and I don't even know if you knew this. When you became Speaker of the House, was it 2012?
Yes, sir.
You were the first Republican Speaker of the Mississippi House since Isaac Shadd, S-H-A-D-D, who served as Speaker for 2 years, 1874 through 1876.
That's correct.
Hey, it was a long, long time, and I remember going through those periods of the transition from Democrat to Republican, when that topsy-turvy point where he won by one vote, eviscerated the Republican chairmanship.
That's right. That's correct.
It was. I don't know if we'll ever have another speaker's race like that, or at least I hope not in my lifetime. But
I agree.
Let's get back to the matters at hand. Now, if the reporter wanted to make a cogent argument about this, she would have asked you, Mr. Speaker, what, not the 12 years old, but a 16-year-old. Because it's my understanding that a 16-year-old in the state of Mississippi, that is the legal age of consent.
Yes, sir, that is correct. So the scenario as posed is considered to be rape. The 12-year-old is a rape victim. There's no way, there's no legal way for any girl below the age of 16 to be pregnant. So any child below the age of 16 who is pregnant has been, by definition, raped. And under the trigger law that we have, that would be covered as an exception for the abortion. The trigger law contains two exceptions. One is rape, one is life of the mother. The question centered around, what about the incest situation? Well, in the situation posed, that is deemed to be rape. So the exception does exist. But again, I cannot condemn, I can't find the words harsh enough to condemn the fact that I strongly believe that anyone who commits a rape or an incest should be punished to the fullest extent of the law. And we have laws on the books that do that. I support those. I have always been a champion for that.
Do you think they are harsh enough?
To try to pretend like I in some way endorsed that situation was just a complete attack and a misrepresentation that somehow I was not sympathetic to that. I am incredibly sympathetic to that and incredibly want to make sure that perpetrator is prosecuted and that the victim of that is supported in every way possible, that we can help them through that situation. So let me make that extremely clear. The logical conclusion of that question by the reporter is that people who come into being as a result of rape or incest are expendable. That if you follow the logic of the pro-choice crowd, that is where that logic ends, that because this person came into being because of a rape or an incest, that somehow their life is not as valuable as another, or that somehow they are, it's okay to expend that life through abortion. And I don't agree with that. I don't share that view. I think that that anybody that I assume there are people walking around today that are the product of a rape. Are you telling me their life is not as valuable as the next person? I don't agree with that.
But if you draw the lines here and say that 12-year-old was raped and is pregnant at 12 years old, you don't think that would be one of the reasons for immediately, as soon as that is reported to the police, the medical staff is there, you think that 12-year-old should carry that child?
Well, it depends on what your view is about the value of that life. There's been a crime committed, and there is a victim. But the innocent child in that room
I understand
has done nothing wrong.
And I mentioned yesterday, but I mentioned that yesterday, when you start looking at triage, and this is one of those things as far as triage is concerned, there's not a good choice one way or the other.
You're right. It's a bad situation. And
it is a bad situation.
It's difficult to know what to do because you've got a crime that's been committed. You've got a victim. You've got a wrongdoer and the person who perpetrated that crime, but within that womb you have a life and I believe that life has come into being because God put it there, and the Bible is very clear that is the case. God could have caused that life not to come into being.
Wait a minute, you could say the same thing though, and I don't want to push back all this program. We'll get something else, but you could say the same thing about the child in the womb. That a doctor, a bunch of surgeons get together and say, we have absolutely, positively, sure, if you deliver this kid, you will die. Now, you're just becoming pregnant, but we're telling you, if you give birth to this child, or try to, in the latter stages, before we can save the child, you will die.
But we have
that is a triage moment.
We have that exception in our law, that the life of the mother is an exception.
Well, I understand that, but I'm just saying I'm just trying to get to your personal views on here when you have to make those tough decisions.
It is a very tough decision, and it is not always clear. I try to come back to my understanding of Scriptures on this, Paul, and the Bible is clear and replete with numerous verses that talk about how God created man. God knew us in our womb before we were born. God is the creator of all things, and that life in that womb has value. Just because it was the product of a rape or an incest does not cause it to be less valuable. And,
I do agree with you
God
on
could
incest,
have caused that life not to come into being. He could have done that if he'd have chosen to, but for whatever reason, he chose to let that life come into being.
If a 16-year-old decides she is in love with someone and they're having sex unprotected, and whether he is 16 or 17 or 18 or 35, I agree with you. That was your choice. And that's not incest because you agreed to it. Well, it is incest, but then again, that's...
Well, incest could be consensual too. I mean, you could have.
That's what I'm saying.
You could have 20 and 30-year-old individuals who agree to do that. That is consensual. That would not be rape.
I should have said consent with incest at that age.
Right.
All right. Let's move on to. Well, let me go back to this. The laws in the state of Mississippi for incest are 10 years, up to 10 years, and a $500 fine. Should that be increased?
I guess we need to revisit that. That is not something that I have.
It sounds like something.
Well, it's not something I've looked at in a long time, Paul. So I don't know.
There are so many other things going on. Let me, in the same vein, ask you this question, because even the governor of South Dakota, Kristi Noem, mentioned this. She says now with us pulling these abortion or shutting down the abortions clinics in the state of South Dakota, we have to pay more attention to the services that we're going to offer if these children are allowed to be born and they need help. Is that going to be a focus as far as the 2023 in our state?
Absolutely. I made an announcement the day this decision came down from the Supreme Court that I was forming a committee to look at how we now move forward. This is a new day. It's a new landscape in Mississippi. And so you're going to have babies who were previously aborted now coming into being. And so we need to look at how do we make sure that we provide the help that they need. Reached out to the churches. I think the churches have a big role here to step up. They're the ones who have prayed for this for a long time. I think the churches, we need to step up. We have a lot of what I call support services out there. You have crisis pregnancy centers. We have 37 crisis pregnancy centers around the state that exist for the purpose of providing services to mothers and these babies who are born. It is certainly an alternative to abortion. We got one abortion clinic in the state, and we got 37 crisis pregnancy centers. We, the legislature, have this past year, one of the new laws that goes into effect, which I want everybody to know about, is a tax credit for those crisis pregnancy centers. If you're a business or an individual and you would like to support these crisis pregnancy centers, you get a tax credit, a dollar-for-dollar tax credit. For every dollar you give, you get a dollar back, up to 50% of your tax liability. So this is a tremendous way for our citizens to step up. It's a $3.5 million tax credit. If you are interested in helping these crisis pregnancy centers, this is a way that you can go about doing that and providing monetary resources to help these people.
We'll talk more in the final segment here, which is a short one. We'll get to it. But it sounds like one of the focuses is going to be on strengthening adoption and looking at the adoption laws.
Absolutely. Those
making that a little bit easier.
Those are other things that need to be done.
We'll talk about those. A couple of other things I want to ask you when we come back with the Speaker of the House, Philip Gunn. Final segment. Showers. Back, final segment here. Just wondering, because if you look at how this is going to affect us in the years to come, which is a great thing. Don't get me wrong, but I think most states are preparing from this, as you said, from the adoption perspective. Does it change your mind as Speaker of the House as far as postpartum is concerned, or some form of, let's don't call it Medicaid expansion, but some form of redoing that in any form or fashion?
Well, Paul, I've said repeatedly, and I'll say it again, it is my understanding that, well, as you know, we've been very much against expansion. That's been very clear. The postpartum thing appears to be, looks like expansion. You're increasing benefits from 2 months to a year. If I'm wrong in that, I've invited the Department of Medicaid to correct me on that. They are the ones who exist for the purpose of guiding us on Medicaid policy, running the program, telling us what works and what does not work.
And their response has been what?
Nothing. There have been no response. We've invited, first of all, if they support the expansion of postpartum, tell us. There's been nothing. They've said nothing. Secondly, if our position is incorrect, then tell us, and they have said nothing. So I can only conclude from that they don't disagree with the position that we've taken. I know those
on both Medicaid expansion and postpartum?
Correct. And so we have invited input. We've invited direction. We have said, hey, if we're wrong in this, let us know. They have been silent. There has been silence. There's been nothing to indicate that they disagree with the position that we have taken. Those who seem to push for this are the ones who seem to benefit financially from that. And I think we always have to remind ourselves that any expansion of benefits falls on the taxpayer. So the taxpayers are going to be the ones that would end up paying more for that. So I'm certainly not an expert on the topic. I'm willing to listen to their advice on the topic, but again, they're the ones that exist for the purpose of directing the program, guiding us in the program, and I've received nothing to indicate that we're wrong.
Don't you feel one way or the other that I understand the adoption part of this, but the medical part of this is going to be exacerbated one way or the other, and we have to prepare for it, and doing the same things we're doing now without readjusting or looking at some things are going to be kind of.
I'm
we go back and get in a crisis to try to do this afterwards.
Sure, I agree with that. We need to look at how we are providing services. That is a comprehensive area. We need to look at the adoption. We need to look at foster care. We need to look at all the things that are going to be tied up in this new day that we have. So this is what this commission that I have formed exists for, is to evaluate those types of things and decide, are there policies, where are we now and where do we need to be? How do we provide the services for that?
Tell me a little bit about the group you're putting together, and when do they meet? And
well, we're in the process now of selecting or deciding who should help us with that. We're trying to evaluate what topics need to be discussed. I would think child support enforcement would be a big topic. You've got individuals out there who
absolutely are
dodging their responsibilities to help pay for their children. We want to increase ways that we can be better enforcers of child support obligations. We want to look at the medical side of this. We want to look at the support services I mentioned earlier, the crisis pregnancy centers, the Baptist Children's Village, Methodist Children's Home, Catholic Charities, things like that exist for the purpose of helping children. We want to look at, as I said, adoption. laws. So anything like that that's the arena, if you will, that I'm looking at, trying to identify what are the role of churches.
Will the hospital association or the hospitals be part of this, because they're going to be the ones that deliver the babies for the most part? And
I have not. I have medical professionals. I have not considered the association itself, but I have considered some. Your friend and mine, Dr. Sid Bondurant, who has offered. He's a gynecologist.
He needs to get out of retirement and go to work anyway.
Yeah, he does, and he's contacted me, and he's offered to be involved. So yes, certainly medical professionals will be included in giving advice. So that's my 30,000-foot view of what we need to do. We need to bring individuals together, evaluate where we are and where we need to go.
Will Medicaid be a part of this? Drew Snyder.
Well, again, as I've said, we've invited participation. I have not thought to include him particularly on this, but he certainly exists for the purpose of consultation and advice.
One quick question I'm going to squeeze in here. Do you think the legislature needs to maybe meet coming up on this Blue Cross thing in the next session?
In the next session? You mean come January?
Yeah.
Well, we got time to evaluate exactly what role the legislature plays in that. I don't foresee any sort of special session being called for that.
Yeah, so it could be something that would be taken up in 2023.
Potentially, yes.
I got you. Always good to have you, sir.
Thank you for having us.